Welcome back to the studio. Um, so, quick little demo on Pastels. Um, just to make a couple things more clear than in class. To start, and what we've been doing is starting with a Grisaille of charcoal and water. Now, this isn't necessary. Um, This isn't 100% necessary. This isn't something you have to do with pastels, especially if you look at Degas. Impressionists use the white of the paper as their underpainting. They wanted that white because it's bright, right? If you're a painter, you know that the burnt sienna creates a mood, a calming warmth. Impressionists wanted light, and so using the white of the paper made things brighter. So if you want to do something like Degas or an Impressionist using these same techniques, don't worry about the Grisaille, just draw. So I've already sort of got something started, but again, if you want, go ahead and start doing a drawing in pencil. And again, I've been just drawing sort of mountains. That's what I usually do with pen and ink, is mountains or landscapes. I like being able to create a sense of distance using washes. It's one of my favorite things to do. So draw lightly, and again on camera you might not be able to see this, but draw very lightly. And then again, very, very, very lightly using water and your charcoal. And treat charcoal, this is no different than most inks. Starting light. Light to dark is the rule. It's opposite. The opposite rule of oil painting, if you've ever taken oil painting with me. Light to dark is the rule here as opposed to dark to light. So I'm just going to gradually build up some value. That's a little bit too dark, so I'm going to add water to really lighten that up. The more water, the lighter, and I'm pushing and moving that charcoal and dabbing before it dries to sort of erase. Now again, this is something you can always reactivate charcoal using a little bit of water, but after a time you're not able to do that. So let's do some really, really light. Again, kind of treating this like a Chinese landscape with some really vague lightly painted mountains. So again, I'm just kind of laying down my pigment. I could do pen and ink. You certainly could do pen and ink. I just like using charcoal. I don't have to buy pen and ink. I could just use the charcoal I have. So, whatever you're doing, whatever you're drawing, using light washes of charcoal and water, give yourself your grisaille. Give those values kind of a basis, right? Your colors are going to be darker because of this. And again, this is going to give you a guide, a nice drawing to use as a guide. So, there's our charcoal grisaille. I'm going to let that dry. I already did this earlier, so hopefully it should be dry by now. And I'm going to pick 2 or 3 colors I've been digging this blue. Again, color is more than just one color. If you're looking at something and you're seeing, well, that's a nice ultramarine, just one color, you need to look closer. You need to squint, you need to pay attention, because again, color is light and there's light bouncing everywhere. And so whatever's next door is probably bouncing onto the object you're drawing in some way or affecting it. And so you want multiple colors. I have different types of blue here, but I'm also adding in my opposites. Remember, opposites are important for using color. If you see, and again, going back to the Impressionists, going back to Degas, look up any Degas. I mean, let's look up a Degas right now. Let's just look up a... I saw something at the Met earlier, and so it's probably in my history. This one right here. Now I'm going to open a new tab so I can really zoom in on it, and you will always see opposites. So we have flesh tones with greens in them, right? So warmish flesh tones with some pinks, but with greens and blues taken directly into the warmer flesh tones. Putting opposites next to each other. We have a warm and a cool, orange and a blue right next to each other to activate themselves. Same with here, which I really think is lovely. To make the shoulder come at you. To make this shoulder come forward, we have a yellow and a blue that are not just, bright colors. They're not just powerful colors. They're next to each other, and there's a reason for that. Pulling the oranges and yellows and greens together. We have cools and warms all over the place, especially in like the dress and the figure, really to draw our attention. But even going back here, I see blues and I see sort of warm browns, and some of the yellows that are just really loosely knocked in here. But I think the most important example is especially here, the teal brought right into the arm, the green brought right into the flesh, and then just opposites all over the place. I mean, let's do a random choice. Let's pick something randomly. A pastel done by somebody else. This is again Degas. Look at that green next to the warm, just knocked right in next to her face. A cool next to the warms. I'm seeing some blues and cools in the face, as well as some yellows in the mouth. This is just a really loose sketch, but not so much. This is the Grisaille, so we're not going to see too much in there. Okay, so I was wrong. Can't randomly pick something. Let's pick something finished, shall we? This is cool. What is this? Warms, yellows, browns, cools. Again, that's kind of a sketch, but that's demonstrated there a little bit. Again, these are very subtle, but again, that subtle combination of opposites is going to activate your color. Bather. Again, I keep picking Degas because he's using pastels like we are. Orange and blue right next to each other. Now, this towel's probably just a white towel, but we have blues and yellows right next to each other. We have greens in the arm. Cools and warms right next to each other. So I hope that demonstrates my point. Let's keep that up there. Okay, so opposites. Pick your opposites and look at your whatever you're drawing. In this case, I was doing mountains, so when this dries, I'll do something like what I did here. It's going to turn into something like this with blues and reds and blues and yellows and greens together. So I'm using blues. Again, I'm going to start very lightly. And I'm just going to very lightly kind of knock in. And I'm just laying down pigment on top of my Grisaille. Very lightly. And you can blend. And you can see I'm not really picking up any of the charcoal. The charcoal's kind of, I guess you're sort of burnishing it as you add water and you're embedding it in the paper. But I'm just going to very lightly kind of blend it. If you want, you can use like Dagon, use some marks, use hatching. And I'm just going to get a little bit darker, a little bit heavier as I go. And it's okay if the underpainting or Grisaille shows through. It's okay if you don't stay within the lines. I think, again, having something that breaks the rules, having areas where your Grisaille and your drawing don't match up, it's going to make for something interesting, and that's allowing your spontaneity affect the drawing. Or in this case, really painting. Now, if you want to erase, you can erase a little bit. I've had some luck with my electric eraser being able to erase stuff, but at some point you're just going to be blending as opposed to erasing. I need to figure out why that's not staying in there very well. You can also, again, if you go too far on the values, you can. There is white, and this white's a little bit more powerful than in colored pencils, and I can kind of come in here and add in and blend in some white. And so I can go from darker values to lighter values, and if I really want to go light, this stuff's pretty powerful. I can, with a heavier hand, a slightly heavier hand, I can apply more pigment and blend. So, and again, we want to use more than just one color. So again, really look, and I'm looking at my mountains, what I will eventually do with my mountains, which I kind of have the previous demo up there. I'm going to hatch in my ultramarine here into sort of the darker areas and blend them a little bit. I like kind of hatching. I like marks. Again, since we're painting, make some marks, make some fun marks, be expressive with it. Don't be too aggressive, because you've noticed that I've broken these quite a lot. It says, am I talking? Yes, I'm talking. I'm recording. I don't need the mic or the camera. Doesn't matter. Google. Different types of blue, maybe throughout. Give yourself some variety. If you remember your art appreciation classes, we like variety. We also like opposites. We love opposites. We love opposites. So maybe something's catching, like there's a yellow object nearby and we're catching some yellow light. And again, we're blending a little bit. Don't want it to turn too green. So I'm just going to knock in some yellow. We like opposites. Hatch in, hatch over, layer a little bit. Try not to blend too much, because again, yellow and blue will make green, which is fine. We like green, but we want that yellow to be there. We want that yellow to sort of have a more powerful presence. And again, in our shadows, in addition to my ultramarine here, I'm going to throw in some of this beautiful red. This is sort of a nice sepia or burnt sienna. I'm going to add that to my dark, to my shadow. And it's tough to see on camera because my camera's not very good. Let's see if I can't zoom in and get a clearer image. But I hope you noticed that as I added my brown, it got darker. Hatch in some blue. Blend in parts, don't blend in parts. I hope you noticed that as I added, and again, you can't really see in my camera because my camera's terrible. Let's try to add some more light to this. Yeah, it's not ideal. I need more light in here, clearly. But I hope, again, as you notice, as I layered in my different types of blue and my ultramarine ultimately in my brown, that this got darker. Now I will take pictures of this so you can see what it looks like, and I'll include it with the video. But you'll notice that I've got some nice dark values going on because of adding that opposite. That's how you get grays. That's how you get blacks. Is you don't add black, though we have black. I've got black sitting right here in the middle, but I'm not using it. I haven't touched it. I don't want it. So let's pretend this is grass. I'm going to add in some blue and maybe this type of blue. And I've got some yellow, so I've got those warms and cools. And let's just pretend I do want to add in a green. I'm going to keep that green along with my yellows and blues. Those yellows and blues are going to optically mix. And that green is going to be more than just a boring old green. It's going to be a green with its component parts. And those opposites working together to create a more active and more really dynamic and interesting image. So let's go down here to my mountains again. That should be dry now. Again, the good thing about this stuff is it dries quick. Whoops. That's fine. That's totally fine. This stuff gets messy. Again, very lightly. This stuff smudges a little bit more than your average color pencil. So again, to repeat, starting light with my color. I'm starting very, very light. In fact, that almost might be too light. But that's okay. We're going to layer. I'll get rid of some of this smudge. We're going to layer, and we're going to very, very lightly layer stuff. And I like using my finger because I like having my hands in the art. Not so much with oil painting, but certainly with this. But you can smudge using paper towels if you want. Then going a little bit darker, a little bit more pigment. And then blend it down. Soften it. Add some white. If you really, really feel like you went too far, you can blend in some white to an extent. Again, just go very lightly and very gradually. And so I'm going to have, at least in this case with my mountains, 3 tiers of different values. And as I move forward, I'm going to add more color and different colors. And that's, again, when we're going to start to activate our color and use opposites, because those opposites, as we activate the color, as we make that color more vibrant, those colors are going to come forward. So if I'm dealing with a foreground and a background, the background's going to be lighter, less vibrant, and again I can kind of kill colors with my white. But up front I'm going to use maybe some more vibrant colors by themselves. And again, I'm going to throw in some opposites. So let's just pretend this mountain's got some shadows behind it. This one's casting a shadow, so I'm going to use my blue and I'm going to throw in my blend in the blue, the darker blue. Where's my ultramarine? My nice dark blue, and I'm going to kind of hatch and blend in those colors to create a darker value. And you kind of can't see. That is just a terrible, terrible, terrible camera. But again, hopefully you saw, and you can see regardless how dark that got. Got quite dark. So play with opposites. Choose some appropriate opposites. Again, this isn't a compliment, the red. It really is looking purple on screen, which is good because, again, I'm adding red and blue together, just not blending them or mixing them directly. I'm placing them next to each other so they kind of optically mix, and blend them here and there. Blend them here and there. If I want to lighten something up, again, add a little bit of the white. Much like colored pencils, you can blend and lighten with the white. This is a little bit stronger though. We're talking about a little bit denser material than your colored pencils. You'll notice that. You'll notice how they're denser, a little bit more waxy. And let's just pretend there's a bit of a sunset or sun behind it, and maybe throw in some yellows. A little bit of yellow. Just straight yellow. So again, so it doesn't turn green, it just has a little shock of yellow in there. And very lightly. You can see how quickly you can smudge. And if you do smudge, if you go too far, it's okay. Some of the stuff does erase. And again, using that white or layering to repair or fix. So that's pastels. Opposites, blending, layering, going from light to dark, starting out very light and light to dark, and layering to get at, again, you can kind of see it looks purplish, but it's looking closely. Yeah, let me try to zoom in. There you go. You can kind of see the reds in there, and the yellows and the blues really. God, I need to get a new camera. Really bad quality, but that's what we have. So let's try to zoom out. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe we're too close. Blending and layering, hatching, using mark making as well to make, to draw attention, to make interesting imagery, using these pastel sticks. And I'm just messing around with an invented sort of landscape. Feel free to draw from life. But again, if you're drawing from life, I very much want you to really look and see what colors you can see, because they're there. And use these rules of opposites as well to your advantage. And so yeah, that's all I have for that demo. Again, the assignment will be using pastels. It's all about layering, and it's all about using opposites in the same place, not just next to each other. Though, again, if I wanted to use some opposites, I might throw in some blues and oranges, right next to each other. So again, so they activate each other. So just like that, instead of blending, just putting two colors right next to each other activates them and brings them forward. So here's your sunset maybe. It's going to activate the two colors, and you can blend them. Again, blending is, especially blending opposites, you're going to get grays. But two pure colors together, next to each other, they're going to activate each other, and they're going to come at you. They're going to pop. And so do I want something to disappear into the background? I'm going to make it very light and very gray. Especially making use of that Grisaille, that gray that you already created that's already in there. And then do I want to activate things? Do I want to bring them forward? Do I want to make something interesting and vibrant? Opposites together, same place. So that's not bad considering. And it's messy. It's lots of fun, lots of greasy, messy, pastel-y fun. Enjoy, again, in these initial drawings, play, get used to the material, used to layering and blending. Because even with this, I can layer on top of this and blend a little bit more for a time. Again, there's a limit. And find out where that limit is by just dumping your material onto a piece of paper and having fun with it. I hope that's clear. Again, let me know if you have any questions. That's all I got. I will see you all next time.